Hello everyone! Welcome back to yet another speed paint. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these. Life has gotten pretty crazy, as I'm sure every one of my viewers knows. But I am working on coming back, and I thought what better way to start that than to have a special video. Now, some of you might be wondering what makes this video so special. Well, this video is actually going to be going up in honor of Undertale's 5th year anniversary, which is September 15th. For those of you who don't know, Undertale is a fun little RPG-style video game created by Toby Fox. It takes place in the world of the underground filled with monsters and this one human character who falls in, and it is your choice as the player to decide whether you make friends or make foes. This game is so adorable and the characters are absolutely lovely, and Undertale has been a huge part of my life for the past 5 years, even if it's never really been that obvious to maybe my friends or my internet fans. It has been a large part of my character development, as weird as that sounds, and it's just brought me a lot of joy and happiness over the past few years. And that's saying something. I've struggled with depression, so having something that is a constant little serotonin producer, a constant little happiness drug, I guess, is really important. And I think just the calming nature of this game and the fun environment and the storytelling it has made such an impact on me and made me want to do more creative works, which is incredible. And if you actually look back on my YouTube channel, you will see older speed paints surrounding the Undertale fandom, and different illustrations I've done are seen on my Instagram. This particular illustration that you see on screen isn't just in honor of the 5th year anniversary, but it also doubles as a redraw, as 4 to 5 years ago I did actually create an illustration, and the speed paint for it is on this YouTube channel. I was so proud of it when I made it, but it did feature one of my own characters in place of the main character. Their name is Frisk, I'm drawing right now on the screen. But my original illustration, I wanted to put my own character into it, give one of my characters the opportunity to be in the game, like a sort of insert into the world to create my own stories. I will put that illustration up on screen right here so that you can kind of see the original compared to this one. The small problem that came of that was the color scheme was so similar. A lot of people kept confusing my character for the actual Undertale character, which is not a bad thing. In hindsight, me getting annoyed by it was just me being like 16 years old. But I was still proud of that illustration, so wanting to go back and create a new updated version felt kind of, I don't know the right word for it, but it felt proper. It felt like the right thing to do to show that I've really been a part of this world for 5 years now and show how I've grown because of it. Now, I know I've been doing a lot of rambling about the game itself and how it's impacted me, and less about the illustration on screen, but I'm just trying to get a point across that today is a wonderful day for me, and I know plenty of other people on the internet, and I just want to at least hope that this comes across, because for a lot of people watching, you might not understand what video games or movies or fandoms can mean to content creators like myself. Now, moving back to the actual illustration, I will admit that I didn't find I had much difficulty with this. When I did the original drawing 5 years ago, I struggled so much. I was working with so many new concepts that I'd never done before. I had foreshortening of a limb to show that there is reaching out. I had glowing effects. I had all the hearts had to glow and cast their own sort of light source, which I didn't do very much of back then. I have floating elements that I have to try and create a 3D environment of. Like, looking back on it, I can see how flat it is, even if I didn't think my style had changed that much. It's the coloring, it's the tiny details. even if you think that something is really good, it probably is, but there's always room for improvement, and I surprised myself even with this illustration. I didn't struggle nearly as much as I thought I would on the hand. It definitely looks a lot better, a lot more natural, and while I know it can still be improved, I am so proud of how far I've come with even something as small as just the little elbow bend or a hand placement, or just how much more natural of a pose it looks compared to the first iteration of this illustration. Another variation between the original and this particular illustration, aside from the character themselves, is I wanted to try and incorporate the labels a little bit more fluidly in the illustration. Beforehand, I just kind of had them in there flat. It was front and back, and they were just kind of there. But in this illustration, I really wanted to focus on creating an actual shape, creating layers and levels of where the eye will go. By this point, I have done many more classes and taken many more lessons on illustration and design than when I did the original. Before, I was just drawing, and while this one was still just drawing as well, it was still different. I have more basics under my belt, I know more disciplines than I did before, so I kept in mind triangles, circles, rule of thirds, things that have started to become more naturally to me than when I first started drawing, or even when I was drawing 5 years ago. And you can kind of see that in my initial sketch of this illustration. I try and focus the ring of hearts around the character's head a little bit more fluidly than I did in the original illustration. I really wanted things to feel rounded, to feel balanced, and have this main character actually feel like a main character, have them centered and stable, and choosing their option like they would in the game, like the whole purpose of the game is. This also means that the two little signs, the fight and the act, which of course fight is kind of cut off because of the positioning, I wanted them to wrap around the character a little bit more than just be static behind them. I wanted to create an environment, create depth, add a sort of curve. Real life is not flat, even if we kind of see it like that sometimes. There's always going to be a curve, there's always going to be an edge, and I wanted to try and capture that even though these are floating, glowing little buttons. Now, as I started coloring, I really wanted to try and focus on getting the softness down. Why did that word sound like it came out really weird? I wanted to get the softness right. I wanted it to be a very inviting character. The character in the game, while pixelated, always had a sort of charm, at least to me, so I really wanted to try and capture that. I did try and get as accurate to the colors as I could, spare a few more creative liberties like skin tone. In the actual video game, the character is depicted as a yellow colored sprite with a nondescript purplish outfit. It's never really decided or announced what that outfit is, so my creative liberties was I decided to give them a sort of sweater and pants situation. It's a very common creative liberty taken with this character, and for me personally, I find it quite fits the sort of personality they seem to give off within the game. Keeping that in mind, I still wanted, like I said, to create a sort of soft, welcoming character, which is part of why I chose a sweater as well. I find sweaters are very soft and comforting and reassuring. So putting that into a character for me kind of helps further prove that in terms of character design. As well, I made sure to include their little stripes on their shirt. For reference, I will be popping up a little character sprite of the main character so you can see context if you don't know what I'm talking about or have never seen much of Undertale. I know there are some people out there who haven't. It's a surprisingly small fandom despite how large of a game content it created, how much of a fandom it created. So I understand if you are just here for the pretty art. I personally think it turned out really well, but maybe you don't. If you have any comments, critiques, questions, pop them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them and talk to you guys. I love talking to you guys, and your comments help inspire me to do more stuff. And if you really liked this video, hit the subscribe button and check down below where you can see other places I post my work. I have an Instagram where I post almost every day or every other day. This is where I'm most active. As well, if you feel like supporting me, I have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down below. Every little bit helps, and it really encourages me to do more work and create more content like this, because it means I'll have less time at my actual job and more time at home creating things that I love and that you support and love as well. So every little bit is appreciated, even just giving me a like or a follow on Instagram. I will say that creating this illustration and having some sort of base progress to look back on in terms of having that illustration I did 6 years ago, 5 years ago, that's basically the same thing, is I realized what I've learned and how I've grown even without paying attention. For example, the colors in this particular illustration are so much brighter than the original was, and I don't even know why. I think back in the day, I was terrified of using bright, saturated colors because I felt like it would be too harsh, too much. So I always tried to desaturate and make everything soft, which in the end kind of made it turn out gray. I learned a lot about how to color and shade and keep things bright and alive. You'll see in the actual character shading, I found ways to make it look like a 3D character, more rounded and less like I'm coloring an image. I know that no matter what, it's still gonna look like a colored image in my particular style. I'm not by any means a realistic drawer or artist. I'm not a realistic style. I am a stylized artist. I create very stylized images, but it's not just the stylization that I work on, it is finding the shortcuts from real life into my style, creating an illustration that still looks good while sticking in that style, which of course includes the shading, not just the coloring and the actual style itself. Another way that I have improved in my coloring is actually in the glowing effects that you'll see later on in the video. In the original, I found that the best and easiest way to make a glowing effect was to just use the color style layers in the program. I would use a hard light or an overlay or a color dodge layer, and I would just use an airbrush tool. And I thought that that fixed everything, but it doesn't. Glowing is a lot more than just casting its own soft light. It has different elements to it. One of the ways that I've learned glowing effects is honestly just watching other artists and looking up other artists' tutorials. Tutorials are a great way to grow and learn as much as regular practice is. I have learned, and the technique that I actually put into practice in this illustration was that the glow starts from the center of the object. The object does not just cast a light. So the center of each thing that I decided to have it make its own light is actually basically a white. It's a bright version of that color that borders on a white, and the closer to the edges you get, the darker that color gets. So for example, on the hearts surrounding the character, the yellow heart will have a dark yellow outline with a white center, and then you have the airbrush tool on the edge of that to create that visible glow. You need a base before you can have it give off light, and that is so important that it's really, it can make or break the whole illustration, but it's not something that you can figure out on your own unless you're really that observant. It took me a long time to realize what I was doing wrong, how to fix it, and overall just how to make things look better. I'm not saying that my original looked bad. I'm not saying what I did 5 years ago looks bad, but I do know that what I created now just looks better, and that's just something that happens as you work on whatever your hobby is. And in this case, my hobby is art. I will just get better even if I was proud of something I made 3 or 5 years ago. When coloring with something that gives off its own light, that is, in close proximity, you also have to keep in mind where the light will land on something. In the original, I kind of forgot that, or I didn't really know how to do that, and while I'm still by no means perfect, I definitely think I've gotten better with that. For example, you can see the way I shaded the hands, or the face, kind of fall in line with where the red heart in the chest would light up, or where the large button right up front would light up. You can see that it actually makes sense for where the light would fall. For the surrounding hearts, I made sure that they actually gave off light and landed on the hair. This not only puts them in the illustration and shows where they are in this environment, but it just adds an extra layer of, oh, that thing really is giving off light, because look, you can see it landing on the nearby object. And that's something that can so easily be forgotten, especially if you don't even know what you're looking for to begin with. A lot of this illustration and its improvements come down to the small details. While my actual artistic style might not have changed that much, it's my coloring that has changed. It's the way that I actually create a more 3D realistic looking face, the way the nose and the eyes actually fall together, the way that light falls on this character and creates an environment, the dark background that helps them pop out, and yet they still don't look like a sticker effect on the background, because I've shaded the legs in such a way that it looks like they belong. It's these little details that don't even go noticed right away until you actually look at something like this video and see how long I spent doing one tiny section. It is fascinating, even from an artist's standpoint, to see a finished illustration and think, oh, it looks beautiful and it looks simple and it looks amazing. I bet it took them no time at all. And while I'm not saying it's good or bad to take any amount of time, it's all up to the particular artist. It's all up to their talent, how much time they want to put into an illustration. There are so many layers that go into even a simple drawing with very little substance to it. There is thought, there is care, there are little things that give it life, and that is what I'm so proud of in this illustration, is I managed to give it life where the original didn't have any. It's the tiny airbrush effect on the bottom of the hair that helps it blend into the blue background. It's the addition of a colored highlight that corresponds with each heart, and adding highlights to the sleeves of the sweater where the yellow glow would fall. It's all these little things that in the moment I didn't even realize I had improved on. It wasn't until I stepped back from my computer, looked at the original, and went, oh my god, look at this thing I've done, and look at how far I've come. I will admit that recently I have had a big hit to my motivation. Not the actual drawing part itself, but just in general. I still love drawing, I love creating, I love coming up with stories and ideas, and sometimes it is really hard to try and do what you like when it feels like the whole world is against you. As someone who really wants to make art my career, an illustration like this was exactly what I needed to remind me that I'm still on the right track. I've put in so much effort so far, even if I didn't see it right away, that it just motivates me to keep going. So I hope that this little message that has turned into a giant 20-minute ramble has helped you, the viewer. If you're interested in something, don't give up on it. The universe might feel against you every day, or there might be one day in particular that really feels like it's trying to beat you down, but you just have to try and not let it get to you, as stupid as that sounds. Look back on where you started, see how far you've come, and if you haven't come that far yet, if you've only been doing this for a year, a couple days, a month, look at how far you can go. Everyone starts somewhere, and if this is something that you really are interested in, even if it's just a hobby, don't give up. That's all I have to say on that. I'm sorry that this video turned into a ramble, but the whole embodiment of this video game, of this illustration that I want to honor the Undertale anniversary with, it's meant to be inspirational. The whole game talks about your determination, and I wanted to capture that in this illustration, and I guess I got so caught up in trying to capture the emotion in the illustration and make sure that you understood that emotion that I started getting ahead of myself and trying to make you feel determined to do whatever it is you set your mind to. That being said, I am very proud of this illustration. I think I have come a long way, and I'm excited to see where my art journey will take me. I've put a lot of thought and effort into this illustration. I worked on laying it out in a way that would make me happy. I put in the effort to add the small details, and I am proud to say that 5 years later, I'm still making content for something that has brought me joy, and I'm so happy that I can sit back at the end of the day and say, this is the piece that I've created in honor of the 5-year anniversary. I'm proud of this piece, and if you like it as well, then let me know. Let me know which color was your favorite to see come to life as a glow. If you've played the game, let me know which character was your favorite, and maybe I'll do them later this week or next year. I don't know. I feel like I've gotten so off track with this video, but I can't express enough how happy I am with this drawing and how much I want to try and get across that idea of not giving up. Don't give up, because someone really cares about you. Now, as sappy as this whole video has been, and as off track as this whole video has been, and that may be just a small reminder to myself to actually try and make scripts for these videos, I do really hope you enjoyed. I know that I didn't talk about the art process as much as I normally like to, but for me, this art process was a lot of just emotion and feeling. So I hope that you kind of understand the thought process behind when I was creating this illustration, the desire behind creating it, and just why I made it. And if you like it, make sure to give me a follow, like it, share it with your friends, celebrate the 5th anniversary if you're an Undertale fan, and I'll see you guys next week. I do plan on making more videos. I will be starting a series soon, given that it is almost October, my favorite month, and I'm currently working on another series, which is why I have not done videos as often, that should be coming out by the end of this year into next year. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely day and stay safe wherever you are in the world. Mwah. Bye!